Hello, thank you for joining me. For those who don't know me, I'm Carli Norris. I'm an actress and I own Chocodolly.co.uk. And I've been making my own clothes since I was about 14 years old. I recently released this beautiful Felicity full circle gathered skirt on the website, and I was inundated with requests for the pattern. So I thought today what I'll do is a really easy video to show you how simple it is to make a full circle skirt pattern. And then afterwards we're going to make the skirt itself. So what we're going to do is just create, this is the actual pattern for the circle skirt. The difference between a normal circle skirt and my gathered circle skirt is obviously it's a much wider waistband. There's a lot more fabric in it so it doesn't blow up in the wind. It's so elegant and it's this beautiful ivory blossom fabric. That's exactly what we're going to recreate today. So I'm going to show you how to make these simple patterns, the waistband and the pocket. So without further ado, let's go on and see what we need to create this. Okay, so with a normal circle skirt pattern, usually what you would get is a large piece at the front and just two quarter pieces at the back. But I'm adding, these are the smaller pieces I'm going to do. There's 7 actual pieces. This is so I can get more out of the fabric that I've got, and we'll see why later. So you're going to need some paper. You can get pattern paper, which has got those little dots on it. It can work out quite expensive, but if you've got a roll of wrapping paper at home, that's equally as good. You just want something that's nice and wide. I'm using this craft paper today, which is quite cheap. It's just from a normal everyday store. You'll need a straight edge and a pen. You'll need a tape measure for your measurements. You'll need some paper scissors. Please don't use your fabric scissors. My other ruler, which is a godsend, is this. It's a Perspex see-through ruler and it's already got the inches marked out. I always use inches. That seems to be the majority of seamstresses globally use inches, and it's just easier for me to use. You'll need a piece of paper and a pencil to write your notes down, and you'll need some kind of calculator. And this is a little top tip. This might be a very unconventional way of doing it, but this is the way that I make my curve. There's probably a million seamstresses out there going, oh my God, she hasn't got the proper curvy thingy. But this always works for me, always makes it science. It's just, you know, as long as you've got a steady hand. So you're going to need to do a little bit of maths. The first thing you're going to need to do is write down your measurements. So I'm making this for a friend of mine already. She's given me her waist measurements, which is 28 inches, and I'm going to make this skirt a 26-inch skirt. You obviously could make it a lot shorter or a lot longer if you want. If you're going to make it longer, you're obviously going to need a lot more fabric than we're going to talk about later. So the first thing you're going to need to do, and I'm going to use this longer edge here, is just to do a nice straight line. And I know you've got a straight edge here, but I want to leave a little gap because I want to leave some room for my seam allowance afterwards. So I'm just going to draw a straight line as long as I like down there. And then with my other straight edge, because it's got this nice, it's very square, you could use like a T-square or something like that. As long as you've got the right angle, I'm going to create a little right angle there. So to find your waist measurement, if you don't know where your waist is, it's generally the smallest part here. And I know that sounds a funny thing to say, but not a lot of people know where their waist is. If you tie a ribbon or a piece of string around the smallest part of your waist and just tip from side to side, where that string falls, that's your natural waist. If you want a nice snug fit, hold the tape measure really quite tight. If you want your skirt to be a bit looser, then again, move the tape measure around to wherever you want. So what we have to do is find the diameter of the circle. So I'm doing a 28-inch waist now. Now a circle, obviously the diameter, no, that's the circumference, isn't it? That's the circumference, and I need to find the diameter. So you have to divide it by pi, which is 3.14. So I'm going to do 28 inches divided by 3.14. That's 8.9 inches. So let's say this is a circle here. If this was 28 inches, this is going to be 8.9 inches. And because we're working on a corner point, it needs to be half of that again. So that quick sum there, this is the number you want now. It's your waist measurement divided by pi, which is 3.14, and then you divide that by 2, you get the half measurement. This comes to 4.45 inches, which is just below 4.5 inches. So I'm going to take my little tape measure and I'm going to measure down here across this longer line 4.5 inches, and it's just going to be just a tad below that. Okay, now because if you're going to do a normal circle skirt, that's the measurement you need, but because we're doing a gathered circle skirt, I want to times that by 2. So that was the first way of showing you how to do a normal circle skirt. So I've got 28 inches, I want to times that by 2 because we want to make it double, and then divide that by pi, 3.14, and then divide that by 2. That comes to 8.9. Obviously, that's going to be twice the length of this, so that works out well. So we know that is. So I'm going to go to 8.9, which is here. Now we want to find the length of our skirt. Now I want to do 26 inches. So I'm going to measure now 26 inches from my furthest point, just to there. So just so I know I've got enough on here, I'm just going to put a little mark there. But the first thing we want to do is to create this curve. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to measure from there 8.9 inches as well, so I know I've got a pretty decent thing. Now, here's how you create your curve. You want to take your string. You can pin this down if you haven't got an Edwardian wooden table like mine. It's been slightly ruined by my children painting. I'm going to hold that directly on the corner quite tight with my finger. And with the other end of the string, you want to wind it around your pen until you've got that point that you made. That's exactly it. Now, if you notice my finger, it's not inside the corner there, it's just on the outside, so that when I move this around, it's going to stay exactly the same distance away from my finger. And I'm just going to draw, and that goes almost to that. That's good enough for me, quite frankly. Now, we don't want a great big square like that, because we want to fit a load of pieces on our fabric. So I'm going to find the midway point between these two marks. It's quite simple. So that's 12.5 inches. So that's 6.25 inches is just there. And then I'm just going to draw a straight line from my corner through that mark. Sorry, let's get that there so you can see it properly. Okay, just going to draw that down, make sure it's straight. And I want to measure, so from this line, remember this is the top of the waistband piece, we want it to be 26 inches all the way down. So I'm just going to give this a quick measure up to see from the waist part, the waistband of this part, and I want 26 inches, which is there. Sorry, stretching over the table, looking very unladylike. I'll just finish that straight edge off. Okay, so now we've got this to play with, and we've now got to create the bottom edge, the bottom curve. So exactly how you did the waistband, and we're going to go from this corner again. So I'm going to make sure that the string is, actually I'll do it this way around so that it doesn't move. Make sure that the string is roughly the right length, okay. I'm going to wind my pen, the string around my pen, and hold it in place with my finger. Get it on that point. I'm using my thumb this time to anchor it, and then I'm just going to draw a circle to the other point, so that's fine. Now, what you're going to need to do now is add your seam allowance. Now that can be whatever you like, but universally it tends to be 5/8 of an inch, which sounds like a really strange measurement, but it works somehow. It's a little over 1/2 inch. It's how most vintage dress patterns, you're going to have 5/8 of an inch. So you just find 5/8 of an inch. In fact, I'll do it this way because it's slightly longer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8 of an inch all the way down. We don't need it up there because it's only going to be down to there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way down. That's my wobbly table. All the way down like that. And I'm going to eyeball that last bit. So you need your seam allowance on this side also. Five-eighths of an inch. Where am I going? I don't know what I'm doing. There we go. There we go. And enough seam allowance on the bottom there. I'm literally going to just do the 5/8 of an inch all the way round, but you can eyeball that. You can do the same thing with the string, but that's fine. You also need the same on the waistband top. Again, just to save time, I'm doing that for you with yeah, that's right, that's 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so you now want to cut out this entire piece, and that's your circle piece. And so there we have our first piece of our pattern. Now I'm going to write on here gathered circle skirt, and then I'll just put 5/8 of an inch just so we know that that's our seam allowance, and that's going to be my pattern. Now you can, if you want to, trace round this a lot of times so that you can lay them all out on the fabric at the same time. I'm just literally going to use this as my one pattern, draw around it and move it. So I'm going to pop that there. Now for the waistband. So we're going to draw our straight line again. Again, come in from the edge of the paper a little bit. Let's move those out of the way. It's very difficult using rolled up paper, isn't it? But it means there's no creases in it, so that's fine. Okay, so we've got our measurement of 28 inches. We're going to add on an extra inch for the overlap because we're doing a lapped zip. So that extra inch, so it makes it 29. So I'm going to, let's go from this end. Let's put our first mark here, and then 29 inches is here. Now, however deep you want your waistband is completely up to you. The deeper you have it though, the more chance there is as you bend and stretch and eat and sit and watch television that the waistband will ruffle up a little bit. We are going to talk about reinforcing that later, but if you're going to have like a 4-inch waistband, be aware that it's not going to fit your body properly anyway. The waistband I've created on this one it's around about 2 inches, just over 2 inches. So we're going to double that over. So we need it to be 4 inches deep. So I'm going to take my measurement at 4 inches. Let's turn it upside down so we've got that. That's on the line at 4 inches. Make sure that that straight line is on the 4-inch mark, and I'm just going to draw 4 inches up there and then go across. So we have a nice, there's the edge there. Go straight up. And again, now you want to add your seam allowance in. So again, that's just 5/8 of an inch all the way round. Dee, 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 dee. These are so handy, these rulers, because they've not only got the inch marks on, they've got the fractions of the inches on as well, so you can really make sure you're being accurate with your measurements. And 5/8 of an inch is here. I'm just going to pop that in. Whoop. And then we're going to cut that out. You're also going to need 2 pockets. Now, the pocket itself isn't just a loop in, it's kind of loops down like a tear shape. So I'm going to draw a straight line here, and then I'm going to come in at an angle. I don't know if you can see how I'm doing this. So this is going downwards towards me. I'm going to make it nice and deep because I like a big pocket. And then I'm going to come back up. Now we're going to add that 5/8 of an inch. I've just gone over a little bit there. 5/8 of an inch seam allowance just to the end there. This is fine for a pocket opening for me. I might just make it a little bit deeper. Just so you've got a nice shaped pocket. Put your hand in, make sure it goes all the way around and your fingers are splayed out. You won't be able to get your phone in there and your tissues and whatever else you'll need. And then you just want to, I'm going to write on there pocket, and then I'm going to write 26-inch waistband. And then you just want to cut these out. So we're ready now to start cutting out our pattern. I'm using this beautiful polycotton fabric. This is available from our website currently at the moment. Might not be there if you're watching this in the future. Hello, future people. So this, I think, is a 45-inch wide fabric, and we are using, I've measured it out exactly, and it's 3.7 yards or 3.4 something meters. So I would say get 4 meters, and then you've got enough room just in case you make a mistake. So you're going to need your fabric. My fabric scissors look similar to my paper scissors, so I must keep these out of the way. Do not cut fabric with paper scissors and vice versa. So you need your fabric scissors. If you don't have an overlocker, which is what I'm going to be using on this particular pattern, you can use pinking shears. These crazy scissors with these kind of zigzags on, if you've never seen them before. And the reason why you use these is to finish the seams off afterwards so the fabric doesn't fray. You will need a normal polyester all-purpose zip. Now this is white. It's not exactly the same colour as this fabric. It's the only one I had, but this is just to show you how to put this zip on. I've always been really daunted by zips, but thanks to many YouTube videos, I've conquered it and I now love it. So this is a 10-inch zip. You will need some fusible interfacing. Now this is something on one side of it is kind of bumpy. That's because there's glue. And what you do is you lay that on your fabric and you press your iron onto it, and the glue melts into the fabric and it basically stabilizes it. You're going to need this for the zipper part. Just 1 inch across, and you want it about 1 inch longer than your zipper. So I've measured these out to 11 inches each. I've also done the same thing, and I've already pre-cut this to the same size as my waistband pattern. So this is going to be reinforcing our waistband. You're going to need something to draw around your pattern. Now this is a disappearing ink pen, and it keeps disappearing. The weird thing is I've bought like 6 of these and I put them down and my children take them and stuff, but it's brilliant because you can draw on the fabric, and then when you iron over it, it disappears with heat. So that's wonderful. It also has a rubber on the end, so it's like friction it disappears with. That's lovely. And then this little hook and bar. This isn't like a normal hook and eye that you would use to fasten things. This is a hook and bar that you'd use for a skirt or a dress. It's just really nice and sturdy for the waistband. And the final thing is your pins. I always find it really handy to have a pin cushion handy, one on my wrist there. That's brilliant. Right, so I've already pre-folded this fabric. Now you want the right sides together. This is the whole length of it folded in half down the long side. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is the, let's put that down there. So this is the folded end here. So we're going to create the front of the skirt, and remember that was twice as big as the rest of them. So we're going to lay it on the fold and cut around it. Don't cut down the folded side. We're going to cut around it, and then when you open it up, it will be twice as big. Now, if you're doing this for an ungathered circle skirt, you don't want to mess around with the measurements of the waistband. So you're going to want to fold in your seam allowance. Well, it'll be on this side. Fold in the seam allowance that goes against the fold. But for this, it doesn't really matter because it's a gathered skirt. So, and you want to get it right up to the edge and then pin around the entire pattern. You've got to excuse my pins. Some of these are bent horribly. I need to get some more. So we're going to pin all the way around the outside. I'm just going to let you watch. So I'm going to just draw around. Oop. So your next piece now, this is an important thing to remember. Now this fabric, the design of it is in all directions. So you could cut it on the bias, you can cut it from any side, from the top or the bottom. And because the flowers are all mixed and matched, it's not going to show. If, however, you've got a pattern where the pattern is going in one direction, you're going to have to lay out your pattern pieces a little bit differently, and you may need more fabric. But for this, I'm just going to save as much fabric as possible by putting my two edge pieces together. And when I cut through, I'm virtually going to be cutting two pieces down one side. Now I've finished drawing around all my pattern pieces. I have one which is along the fold here, and this is going upwards. If you're the bottom and I'm in the top, this is going upwards along the fold. Now, when that opens up again, that will be a big one. I've got another one going next to that in the diagonal, facing downwards. I've got the one next to that, virtually exactly the same, facing downwards. And then the last piece is going on its side here. Now, this was the best way I fitted in. I didn't fit them in properly when I did the first two pieces, and so I had to redo it, but luckily my disappearing ink pen will disappear. Now, I've managed with that configuration to fit in my pockets, one in this space and one in the top space. You need to cut out two of the pockets. Now, don't forget, this fabric is folded over, so for every one piece you're cutting out, you're effectively going to get two pieces. So I have the front section here, I have the side section of the right here, for instance, the side section of the left here, and the two back pieces here when I've cut them out. I've now got the left pocket and the right pocket. It doesn't matter what you call them or where you go, but it's a good idea to write on the pattern pieces how many times you have to use the pattern. Now the waistband, remember you only have to cut one of these because we're going to be folding it in half. You don't want to cut it on the bias because then it will stretch. That's for another pattern completely if you want a stretchy bias cut dress. You want it on going towards the grain, so it's either going from top to bottom or from side to side. This was the best layout for me. So I've got all my pieces drawn out. It's time to get cutting. So that's it. These are my pieces that I've now cut. I have my waistband here. I have two sets of pockets, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have my front section, which is double the width because I cut it on the fold. And then I have 6 side and back sections here. This is my selvage, so you've got plenty of fabric left here to make a really cute hair bow or whatever you want to do, a hair scarf to match it, maybe even a little purse. That would look amazing. But the time now is to fold these and go and have a rest, and I'm going to start sewing fresh in the morning.